Morning, Steph. How are we? You well?
Bit tired, but we're good. We're good. We got company in the shape of
Rico's here.
Gonna raise the roof for some what if questions, but yeah,
we are
all good, mate.
indeed.
How are you?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well. I'm also Merlin's not being so cuddly. He's in the back. He's in the back doing what cats do, just doing his thing. But yeah, all good. Also tired, but I hope to have a bit of coffee after this, and we'll be fine. So back again, guys. Hope you've been enjoying this. Do let us know what you think. I think this is quite a topical one, Steph. We're gonna jump in, mainly because this particular individual he's slightly quieted down recently, but it's fair to say that over the last couple of months he's been pretty divisive, and I would say people aren't pretty happy with his behaviour and conduct and basically what he does. So we're obviously talking about the big man in Zlatan. So I'm going to ask you, Steph, what if AC Milan didn't re-sign the big man back in the winter of 2020? Where would we be now?
Where would we be? So there's two elements, I guess, to what signing Ibra brought back. It was what he physically brought back to the pitch, which was, to be honest, quality, which we required. So certainly in a position where we were just, we've just naturally struggled to sign players of quality because of the fee that signing a top tier striker provides, despite his age being
38, right?
38 at the time, yeah. So you had that side, which we can go into, but then equally, I think what's more important is the side which he did bring, which was the identity back to a club which desperately needed it, and that's the bit, and that's what spins off into his current role. Let's start with quality on the pitch, what he brought back. If we look back to when he first was signed, there was an element of transitioning back from, I guess, the drop down of quality in the MLS back into Serie A, which, although yes, we're not talking about a titan of a league in world football, was still a step up. So he did need to regain probably an element of fitness, an element of kind of like match quality, which he did. Over time he did. You could see it was, in those first games as we were webbing him into the formation closer to Leao, and we purely experimented with a few different formations, kind of elements of 4-4-2 or 4-3-3s or 4-2-3-1s. You could see that he was kind of picking up. But that first half of the season, he joined us, and equally after the COVID break expired, which allowed him to kind of recoup his fitness, you could see he was picking up his quality. It really shone at the start of the following season, which was the 2020-2021 season, when he set the season alight. He scored the 2 goals that led us to the victory against Inter Milan in the derby. He scored 2 goals, I believe, in the Napoli win as well, away from home, which subsequently, in that massive great run of form and our great start to the form of that following campaign, where we just got back into Europa League, started off on a really good pace for the league, but ultimately got injured in that Napoli game, which then we had to kind of pivot away and see what other players could step up in that moment, like Rebic's and Leao's, and more so the midfielders like Kessie, who had to contribute with a lot of goals. And that equally led to the first time in a while, our first top 4 finish, our top 4 finish in the Champions League. Without him coming back, we have to remember where we physically were on the pitch, let alone the fact that where we mentally were as a club. We were nowhere near, not even top 4. We were struggling to get Europa League spot finishes, which in itself is embarrassing if you look at the sheer credibility of what Milan has and the heritage in the Champions League. Go on, sorry.
It was. I remember it. I'm sure guys listening as well. Like, it was no, not at all. I think it was something crazy. I remember when it came back, we were all like, oh my god, this is quite significant. I think we were very bereft of any quality, like actual quality in the team as well. Let's not forget, I've just looked up his stats. he signed in January 2020, literally the turn of the year. Was that right? January 2020.
Yeah.
He scored 10 goals in
Mm.
less than 20 games. That's a
Mm.
huge chunk in only 6 months.
Yeah.
Or of a playing season. Actually, it's like 4 months, wasn't
Mm.
it? So even peeling back, okay, he allowed us top four. Like you said, without those 10 goals, we literally wouldn't have got Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
So we were already been a year back. That's like you're saying, the first point about the actual quality that he brought that first few years, in particular, when his body was still sort of, I would say, together. I think the first couple of seasons we had him, we still had to be managed, but he was largely okay. I don't know if you disagree. I think it was the third season that it started going downhill. The first 2 seasons he came back, he was genuinely quality. He was great. So I just want to peel that back and just think, geez, you're quite right. Like, without those 10 goals, we would not have got Champions League the following. Like, we just wouldn't have got it.
No.
Straight up.
Yeah.
That's 10 goals. Like, where we were getting them from at the time.
And I think it was the importance of his of his arrival was not only, as you said, just the goals he was doing on the pitch, and the goals that he got against Napoli was him looping over what was assumed the best defender, one of the best defenders in the world, Koulibaly, with the header, or equally doing what he did against the great defenders at Inter Milan in that derby. So, quality on the pitch. But then I think for me, what does scream on what he was able to do, in my opinion, because we always look back to that winter market and us signing experienced players like him and Kier, and what they brought to the club, which surely needed that, because it was just, we lost our way completely, and we got humbled by Atalanta 5-0 and Gasperini dancing on us, in that winter before the January. So you obviously like winter 2019, and we all gave up at the club. We all gave up on the club at that point. Probably was rock bottom. We wanted dismissals across the board, and it was really just a point of time where obviously there was only one way to go, which was up. But even so, where was that avenue going to come from? And I didn't put a lot into when Ibra came in. I thought, fucking, this is typical. Like, is this all we got? We got no more money to spend. We got to sign a 38-year-old. From a heritage perspective, that's great. But like, for me, what does this mean on the pitch
as well?
And I thought, how's this going to transition, like, realistically? But to be honest, hitting that rock bottom so vividly and so easily as we did, allowed us to at least have a starting point where expectations were so low, anything was going to be better than what we had. But then it was just, I think it was, as we came back from COVID and as the team started to gel and as we had that lull-off period, that he could web in his experience and allow himself to work with Pioli and the players and work on that identity. I think we're lucky to have that COVID element, that COVID spell off, where we were able to transition the squad and then come back and then build the belief into how we can play good football and play against, like, Juventus's, who are on a bit of a downward spiral, get victories against, Inter Milan's or wherever it might be, Roma. And then obviously into the following season, where I think it reared its head, where it was like, this is where we're coming back a little bit now. And then even when he got injured, goals aside, even when he got injured, I think you still have to put this down to his involvement, that we stepped up as a side. It wasn't, okay, he's injured and equally you could go, yes, that's for the players around him to have stepped up, but that wouldn't have come without him coming back, in my opinion. I think he brought that out of the players, and we're going to fast forward a little bit into, the seasons after, as you said, as his body starts to break down and he comes back, he gives you a couple games, and then it's another injury again, it's a knee overload, and all these things that we all kind of laughed about, because we were like, come on, you probably should just retire now. For me, it goes full circle right to the moment we win the Scudetto, because you see him in the dressing room giving that, that post-victory speech to the squad, almost as a leader, as a pivotal member of the dressing room, and they're all looking at him. Even like Giroud, who's also at this point probably like 35 years old, they're looking at him as like, fucking Gandalf, like the grandfather of time, but still equally like demands and commands respect. That he's speaking on behalf not just the players, he's speaking on behalf of the coach and management. He's like Gazidis, Maldini, Massara. He without him, and I think his impact to the squad mentally, we would not have won the league. And then strip that down, we would not have gotten. And that comes with getting Champions League, qualifications back to back. That comes also equally simplistically as getting Europa League qualification. That season he joined us, and it was those little steps that allowed us to hit the ultimate success and obviously get that Scudetto, and then obviously springboard of that, where we've kind of we've ebbed and flowed a little bit, which we can probably come on to now, but on what his involvement of the squad is with the squad right now, which is probably the only bit really you could say that, what is he actually providing? But I mean,
it's I mean, that speech, I'll never forget it. Italia non è Milan. Was it Milan non è Italia, Italia è Milan? I think it was, right?
Yeah, and he flips the fucking table over. Yeah, and they were all like,
amazing. But I do want to touch on your point. I think this is really, really important, and I hadn't actually really thought about it in detail, which is relation to the sort of timing of it with COVID. I think the whole timing, the whole feeling around the club, it was perfect. Getting Zlatan when football was in a way where, behind closed doors, clubs had a lot of time to maybe look at strategy, look at these sort of intangibles, which I think would take a lot longer to build upon, like the sort of culture and the belief in the squad, which, as you said, and I'm sure most people listening, we were bereft as a club by this point. At the end of 2018, 2019, it was one of the worst periods. Like, we had no idea what we were doing. The squad was awful. We had Donnarumma and we had Leao at this point, but neither of them were really stars. Donnarumma had kind of stagnated at this point at 18 or whatever. He was like good, but he wasn't amazing. He was the only bright, and Leao was nowhere to be seen. Anyway, I think you're quite right. Like, COVID happening allowed Ibra to actually get into the roots of the club and distill his leadership and winning mentality in the right way at the right time. And I do also believe, this is a slight tangent, that had it not been that timing and had he not come at that time, he wouldn't be in the role that he's in now, regardless if he stayed for 3 more seasons, because I think he was then at that moment becoming more than just that football player. That's where it led on to people because I reckon it was Elliot as well as Redbird, talking about wanting to keep Ibra on when he was thinking about retiring. I don't think it was a quick decision. I think Jerry was the one who really wanted him, but I think there were probably ideas of that because they were like, holy shit, this guy is actually helping with the mechanism of this club, not just on the pitch in any way. It's more than that. And it was so interesting to see that evolve. But I think it is also going on to that sort of future perspective. I'll never forget to this day his last ever goal for Milan. I'm sure all of you will remember it distinctly. How much love we had for him as a player and what he did. But my God, that last goal, when his body was gone, like, bro, those penalties, it was all wasn't it? It was,
didn't he get a retake? He got a retake of the penalty as well. But like, I mean, it's a good point because it's like if you think about it, the one gap period he was away from us, obviously post retirement and post his role now. He's brought back for a reason. A lot of us were saying it's because Pioli's lost the changing room or he's lost the motivation of players because Ibra's not there. And that kind of shines into his impact right now. Is that Pioli kind of needed him. He needed him to be there.
Without it.
Or even needed him to keep the players on this path of just a level of expectation, a minimum expectation that without him, who's there to shout out the players, because Maldini's also had an importance there because Maldini was more of a shoulder to cry on, equally someone who's going to just maybe guide your Theo Hernandez's and your Rafael Leao's with more of a calming voice. Ibra was more probably the voice of kind of directness and being like, do you know what fucking club this is? And I think this is quite an important thing to reflect on. In my time as a fan, there's some players that have left the club and come back in an older, non-prime state, and I'll give you two examples: Kaká and Shevchenko, who, in my opinion, will always will be, and you can map out best era 11s of this club.
They'll always be in it. Yeah,
they'll be there, but Ibra won't, because it will always be Shevchenko and Van Basten up front instead of Ibra. However, if you look back to a period of time of them coming back, who actually brought more back? I think Ibra is undenied what he brought back to this club compared to when Kaká came back. When, let's also remember, when he came back, it was, we sold all the fucking quality. We had we were in the banter era, like well and truly, although probably at the start of it, we were in the Champions League and we got knocked out by Atletico, but you know, we was, you know, the cracks were starting to show, and equally, like, we'd sold all the quality and an experience of the squad, and we brought him back for a reason, which was experience. And you know, he did all right, but nowhere near what Ibra's brought back. And then Shevchenko as well, we brought him back. It was a loan deal when it was, you know, his body was also broken down a bit as well. And equally, there was still quality and experience. We probably didn't need him to come in and go like, we need you to come back as a leadership figure. Yeah. And I think that's the difference. Like Shevchenko and Kaká were iconic players in the sense of quality, but not leaders. Ibra was quality and a leader. And when we brought him back for probably the latter more so than the actual quality. And
No, that is such a good point. And I'm sure, I think also, like, he is that perfect mix, isn't he? Because he isn't, I don't think he's as good as Kaká and or Shevchenko. We kind of agreed that, especially in terms of, you know, for AC Milan for sure. But he, alongside Ronaldo and maybe a few others, he also was a physical specimen as well. Yes. He had that. Yeah. He had Kaká and Shevchenko would never have had that longevity that Zlatan had. I think only Ronaldo can rival the longevity in terms of physicality and physique and contribution to a game than Zlatan. I think if it wasn't for his knee, he'd probably still want to be playing now, right? Yeah. I think you're right. I think he had that perfect, like, you know, because he loves karate, he's got this kind of like this mentality that, I'm not saying Kaká and Shevchenko aren't winners, they're winners in every sense, but Zlatan's a bit psychopathic, but in a good way. With like a bit like Ronaldo's a bit like that. It's a bit like win at all costs. Like winning is, you know, everything. They're talking about winning, the idea of winning needs to be living and breathing, and we needed that. And that is such a really, I never even thought about the difference between Kaká and Shevchenko, because I don't even see them as a difference. We always see Zlatan as having that mentality, that idea and consciousness of a winner. So having both that and his ability on the pitch was quite special, really.
Yeah, because you think about it, like if you look between the three, we're not trying to make this between the three, but like the difference between the three is that you could probably say Ibra's got the biggest ego out of the three. Yeah. And that ego works in two ways. Yes, it could be seen as, and this is why the perception of all the three is different to even just neutrals. It will be like, Shevchenko, Kaká, like legends, best players in the game, Ibra, you know, he's not that tier above. But Ibra was fantastic. Oh, yeah. For me, like for last decade, I put him in the top three players of that.
Striker.
Oh, best striker in modern generation. Yeah, I agree. I think he's up there. But like the ego is where some people don't find distasteful. But that ego is the same ego we needed to be very fucking direct to the situation and go, you're all not doing good enough. You all should be doing better. And some players reacted well to it, and some players didn't. Çalhanoğlu is a prime example. Some players who did react well to it were the other players who were soldiers. And you know, and I fucking will always be grateful for what he did for us in that moment, because we needed someone to come in and exactly like shine a mirror on these players and shine a mirror on this squad and management and whoever it was, and go, we all need to do better and start from a humble beginning and equally build our way up. So, yeah, I mean, I think if we go back to the initial question, where the fuck would we be? It's probably a different way to phrase it without Ibra coming back at the squad at that point of time. I don't actually know. I think we'd actually be. I mean, I think we would have sold. We probably would have gone for a period of reselling the assets we had. So Leao probably wouldn't have been with us because we would have sold them way before time and seen that blow up in our face. Your Benitez, your Teo Hernandez, Teo will probably be back in Spain right now playing with Real Madrid, because we would have just shortchanged ourselves and then not been able to believe in a project. We could sit here and go with Milan. We would have picked it up at some point, but really bring yourself back at that point of time. What did we have to claw on to say this is going to save us? We did everything. We brought back old legends as coaches, didn't work. We brought, we tried to spend in the market with in 2017 and bring in, players like Baka and but all we were achieving was at best a Europa League finish. Free agents weren't working. Loans weren't working. Like nothing was working. So realistically, what was going to change it other than an identity change. And who else playing right now? I mean, equally, we could go, all right, what element of management we would have brought in? I mean, fuck me, we're still owned by Berlusconi at one point as well throughout the banner. What element would have been perfect enough to get us back? I mean, maybe there's something, but I can't think of anything else that would have got us back to where we, where we should. Like, there's still a level we need to get to. Don't get me wrong, to be back to Milan, whereas Milan.
Oh yeah,
but even like we're talking, But the fact that we just, even just got that win midweek in the Bernabeu and won the Champions League, so won a Scudetto and like back-to-back Champions League finishes, like it seems now to the point where like the expectation is a failure if we don't get Champions League this year, and that in itself is a success of what he's brought back to 100%. This project. Whereas, fuck me, before he joined, it was getting the Champions League. I remember doing a podcast with the boys, screaming and being like, "Yeah, we fucking did it," because we had Kessie in the corner flag. Wasting time for the last 5 minutes of the game. That's how desperate we are. But now it's comfortable finishes. Yes, obviously been a few shaky ones, but comfortable finishes to the point it's expected minimum to get top 4.
Which it should be, but he brought that back. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
I think it's incredible. I actually, it's been nice to reflect on this. And those listening, I hope you agree as well, because we've got to learn now as Milan fans to kind of separate Zlatan as the player and leader, what he brought, and now the modern director in the form that he is. But it shouldn't take away, as annoying as he is, and his attitude. And it's I think the jury's out on whether his personality and skills can actually be translated into the sort of director role. I think the jury's out on that. Some things he's done are good, but largely I think it's been a big question mark at the moment. But we've got to be able to separate that and reflect and remember that he was the perfect player and leader in every sense to be brought back. And we were lucky, not only that he loves Milan, in comparison to his other clubs, he is a bit of a mercenary, but he does care about this club. And we're lucky that it was available, and we're lucky that it was COVID and all these things. It was the perfect recipe for him to be able to imprint his winning mentality on the club that was so lost. The identity was lost. But it's going to be interesting to see, because I think as time goes on and we get more and more annoyed potentially in things he does, and he probably gets more and more corporate, because it's a corporation at the end of the day these days. Whether or not we're going to remember his impact with such fondness, because ultimately we've got to be able to separate it, because without him, 100% to answer the question, I do not think we would be anywhere close to where we are now. And like you said, we are not at the top. We have still got a couple steps to go, but we are very much on that path. We are relevant again, as we should be. And I don't think we would be there yet without Zlatan. I think that's kind of the bottom line, 100%.
Yeah.
So, Steph, next time he pisses us off with stupid comments, we've got to remember.
I don't so much like, I look for more things from leadership. We berated management for some of the signings from the market. I think if this season does present an element of failure, I do think it comes to management and strategy of squad building and what we're trying to do. And that goes to that doesn't go to Ibra, it goes to all the other figures, Moncada, it goes to Forlani, it goes to the other, Scaroni, like what these people do as a collective, not just Zlatan as an individual. And I, everything that comes out of what he says and what his actual role is, I don't really put too much attention into, because I don't want to scapegoat him as an individual versus the rest of them. It doesn't help, I'll put it that way, but I give him enough grace on what he has given us. And ultimately, and I do think there's some time, and I really hope in the winter market, there's some period, there's something where he can flex his element of whatever his role is to we know what we need to do. We know what assets we should be signing. And I hope he leverages that to actually allow us to continue the growth. But I think it goes back to what we both just said. We're only saying this right now and criticizing right now because he's helped to allow us to get ourselves back from a level of expectation to like, yes, we're still AC Milan. In our opinion, we still believe as fans we are one of the biggest clubs in the world. But where we were when he joined us, and this is where the question goes back to, versus where we are now, we've gone leaps and bounds. And it's allowed us to go back to a point where we expect more. And that's because of him. That's because of what he's allowed us to do as fans. Yeah, we wouldn't be going, we need more from this guy in his role or from the market if it weren't for him coming back and what he allowed us to do throughout this project. So I do kind of say, like, if you do criticize him right now and you think he's ruining his reputation, give him a lot of grace, please, because he's still a fucking legend, like, for us, and what he's done for us throughout the period before as well, where he was fantastic as well in his prime. Amazing, fantastic. And probably if we kept him, he would have gone down as an absolute icon. But he left and he came back, and he still goes down as an icon because what he did, and I fucking say this because he said it fantastically about Ronaldo. Like, he came back and he joined a sinking ship. He didn't come back as an older player and join the best team in the country, Ronaldo and Juventus. He came back and joined a sinking ship, and he fucking steered us back in the direction. I don't even know what other player in the modern era in a top 5 league has done that, and brought a club in such despair in 3 seasons, winning the fucking league title. Like, incredible.
And I'll end on this note as well. You've got to bear in mind the reason why Zlatan has the role he currently has as a director. Again, that's unprecedented. That hasn't happened before. What Zlatan has currently done. Yes, he's a maverick, but the reason he's got that opportunity is because it should show you it is because what he did when he came back was far more impactful than just the club. It was in every mechanism that's within the actual, in the team and everything. Because that's where the corporates would take notice. That's where the big bosses would be like, oh shit, this guy actually can offer us something. It's because the testament is the fact that he is now at Milan as an advisor to Redbird, or in some actual capacity where he has the decision-making power. No player I've ever known has ever done that, unless you're Messi or Ronaldo, but they're different because their brands are supersonic. But even they haven't done that. You know, Zlatan is actually, the fact that he's got this role, this role because if he just came back and helped us for 2 seasons and left, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing right now.
No.
It would never happen. So, respect to the big man.
Exactly.
Well, we both love him, but let's hope he doesn't annoy us anymore. Hey, guys.
Hopefully. But
pleasure. Thank you for joining me again, Steph.
No problem.
Pleasure as always. We'll be back next week. Get your comments in the Discord. If you're not part of the Discord, I think you can get part of it by joining the Substack, where these videos will be on and all the additional articles and everything. So you can tell us what you want to talk about, and we'll talk about it. Get your ideas in. Get engaging, and thanks again. All right.
Yeah.
Pleasure as always.
Pleasure. Yeah, I was gonna say on that, if you do have any, like, I guess nothing's off limit really. We've got a few that we want to topical topics that we want to cover, not just from this era, but equally certainly from my era growing up, like the 2000s. But if you want to talk about eras before that, where it's maybe closer to yourselves, we can do a bit of, we probably have a bit of knowledge on what we could do a lot more research on, or equally just throughout the 2000s or anything that's currently modern right now. Nothing's off limit really. So just kind of, if you do have any suggestions of something that you do want us to talk about, throw it in, and then 100% we'll do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll rattle about anything.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, mate. Cool. I'll speak to you soon, and in a bit.
Been a pleasure.
For Cagliari. Let's go.
Let's go.
See ya.